Okay, so welcome everyone to our fourth episode on PMP related topics. As usual, we'll run for a while. We'll talk about various PMP related topics during the Q&A, but I will start with a conversation around supporting organization change or supporting the organization change. So that's something we are planning to do today in our session. So good to see you. I know it takes little time before the YouTube updates everyone about the event. So hopefully you are getting the message now. So I'm just setting up the things. So the whole idea is we'll talk about support organization change, one of the task of business domain. And then I am happy to talk about various questions if you have related to your PMP certification. So we are live on YouTube. We are also live on LinkedIn. You can put your queries in the YouTube comment or on the LinkedIn comment, and that query will show up and probably we'll talk around that. Yeah. I have one topic which is support organization change. I may also talk about Monte Carlo simulation. I got a one query during this week on my YouTube channel. There was a comment. So I think if I get a time, if there are less queries from the audience, I want to talk about Monte Carlo simulation as well. So these are the two things which are coming from my side. Rest we'll see what comes from you all. So that's the plan. I think it's good time to get started with support organization change. So some of you who are already familiar with our style, I take some time, I share the screen, I talk about a topic, which will run for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we move from there. I'm Saket Bansal. I'm your PMP educator. I have been teaching PMP for last 10, 11 years. That's what I do. And other than PMP, I also talk about scaled agile, Kanban, Scrum, and other stuff. Okay, so we start with sharing the screen. So this is our topic for today, focusing on change. Yeah. So it's like a business domain, topic 4, focusing on how do we work with organizational changes, how do we adapt in our project in order to take care of organizational changes. As a project manager, you are expected to do that. Second, how do you facilitate change in the organization? So it is little tricky. Many times when people are learning about adaptivity, agile, it's more about how do we change our priorities, change our requirement because something is changing. That is anyway needed, but we also need to focus on changing the user's behavior, changing the organization processes, changing the organizational approaches. So the project has a bi-directional relationship with the change. If some changes are happening at an organization level, they impact us, they impact our working inside the project. And if the project is producing some deliverables, it also impacts the changes in the organization. Now, what could be the organization level change? There could be a change in leadership. You may have a new leader, new management, and they have a different priorities. They may look at things differently. They may have a different risk appetite. They may want to play safe, or a reverse. You may have an aggressive management who may want to focus on taking lots of risk. So your approaches, your execution of project may get impacted. Your organization may have a change in a business. They may start focusing on different geography, different type of product, which will also impact the ongoing project. You may have a new stakeholders get identified. You may have a new, say, members in the governance group or in the organization who have recently joined, and that may also impact the way they look at the project, and you need to take care of their needs and expectation. The organization may decide to go for a new process. Yeah, they may say go for digital transformation. They may want to go for agile transformation, something like that. And they may want to do things differently when it comes to a governance level. They may want to collect different kind of matrices. They may want to manage the work in a different way. That also influences the project. You may have a new requirement which might be coming from these changes. You may have a new compliance which might be coming internally, might be coming externally. And all these things can produce a change in the project. So as a project manager, I need to take care of these things impacting my project? So that's one dimension of looking at the change. Now somebody will say, okay, this is relatively easy to identify. What about the other direction? How the project might impact the organization? Now, you need to consider the project in two contexts. Yeah. One context of the project, let me try to take a rough call and see if I can explain it little well here. So I can say one way of doing of project is that you are having your internal organization, they have a business case, and based on that they have issued a project charter, and you are executing the project, and they will consume the deliverable inside the organization. That could be a one context. So say they wanted to make you an automated robot for the manufacturing plant. As a project, you produce that particular robot, automated thing, and that has to be consumed in the organization. So consumption will require readiness for automated robot. So that's a one scenario. By default, business domain is focusing on this scenario. Some of you will say, but that is not the way I work. My projects are different. We have a customer who gives us an order, we just execute it and we give the deliverable back, and that's it. That's our role. Now in this particular case, when you are giving a deliverable to your customer, you may not see a lot of change happening because of the project, but actually that is happening inside the customer space. So maybe you as a project manager or your project team may not be involved in making the adaptation ready for this new deliverable, but there is a change in that case also. And your organization, while in the process of developing this particular deliverable, they may develop a new skill, they may develop a historical data that is also changing the way organization look at these kind of project in future. So if you are doing the path A, which is this one, you will see a lot of change happening because of your project deliverable. If you are doing path B, maybe you have a little limited visibility about how your project is impacting the different or an organization from a change perspective. Now let's focus on this particular path and says, okay, what probably my particular project can generate as a change. So here we can say that if I am producing the deliverable, I can say, and my deliverable may create something new. In general, the projects are expected to drive change. The whole idea of project is creating a unique product, unique service, unique deliverable, which was not there with the organization before, which means something new is coming. It will definitely change my organization. I may want to set up a new business model. I may want to have a new app so that it will help me in generating revenue. I may want to automate some of the manual process. Whatever I will do, it will change my organization. And in a PMP 7, we talk about that system of value delivery. So just project alone is not producing a delivery or an outcome. The other part, the operations, the support has to come together in order to produce the desired outcome. So project drives the change by way of producing a deliverable. Basically, you can say I produce a new product which will get consumed by the organization. I may automate some of the work. I may produce good skills because of the project. I may change my people, they learn something, and that knowledge, that skill is available for the organization for a future uses. So in general, my project will not be able to achieve outcome till the time I can manage this part of the change well. Because just producing a deliverable is just an app, it's a robot. But robot will not help you in saving the cost till the time your manufacturing unit start making a good use of that particular robot. So as a project manager, you may have a role. Now the may is important. Sometimes some other teams might be doing it to ensure that the deliverable which has been produced in your projects are consumed well, understood well in the organization, so the benefits of the project can be achieved. So that is what is expected from a project manager, to have an understanding of both direction of the change and drive the changes in a way so that they produce the desired outcome. Our whole focus is generating value for the organization, and we do it by way of taking care of these two directions of the change. Now I go a little deep. Now that's a high level idea of our task 4 in a business domain. Now, just setting up a context, we have a 12 principles. Personally, I feel most of the principles are talking about change, But these 4 principles, I feel, are more prominently showing that as a project leader, as a project manager, now you need to take care of the change. The principle 2 talks about recognize, evaluate, and respond to a system interaction, which means the system like operational group, program group, portfolio group may have some changes. They might interact with you differently. So you need to respond to it. Yeah. The business systems, the customer support, all those groups in which you are operating, you need to keep eye on them. And if they are changing, you probably need to change accordingly so that you can achieve the outcome. We need to navigate complexity, which means the things will not be very clear to us. As we go along, we will come to know things. We will have a better understanding of what things are working and which particular things are not working. And by following that particular thing, that we are helping the organization to achieve their desired objective. Yeah, so that's the thing. Now, before I move forward, I just end up seeing the word that project drive change. What is the meaning of it? As I said, the project is producing a unique deliverable. And if we want to consume that deliverable, we need to change. I might be doing, my organization is running a stable thing, but they initiated a project, and whatever project will produce, if I want to use it, it will drive a change in my company. So example is, if I want to automate part of my process, I initiate the project automates it. Now my people have to behave differently. They need to use that automation. So that's the whole idea. The primary purpose of project is to develop something new which doesn't exist. And the organization must consume that something new in order to deliver the value. Yeah, so it's like that's the whole intent of projects drive change. I picked up this statement from PMP 6, but that's the whole idea. So coming back to the project management principles, so we need to see how the overall interactions are happening. When I want to drive a change, maybe some systems are not ready to that. Probably the operational group is not ready to use this product in the current form. We need to change a little bit. So I need to understand how the preference of operational groups are changing, how the new technologies are coming, and probably I need to manage that. Similarly, navigate complexity. It primarily means that things will not be clear from the day one. As we go along, we need to continuously keep validating things, and that help us in changing ourselves so that we meet our customer outcome objective, value delivery objective, rather than only sticking to the deliverable. Again, these are project management principles, they are defined at a very high level, but we make some interpretation so that we can connect with our task. Embrace adaptability and resilience, clearly talking about that we should be flexible and we should have a bounce back attitude. Whenever we have a setback, we should be able to come back, responding and adapting towards the change, and clearly saying enable change to achieve envisioned future state. So that could be the another way of saying project drives change. So we need to enable that, because organization has initiated the project to achieve something. They may want to get into new business segment, they may want to get into new customer segment, and we need to enable that to achieve it. I point out again, if you are doing a customer driven project and you are a vendor to it, you may not see all those changes and impacts happening in your customer very, very clearly, but actually they are expected to be there. That's why they are spending money on your deliverable. More I know as a project manager, more I can support in ensuring the value delivery. So that's like a briefing about how probably a project takes care of the change. Now I go further and a little bit more, 5-10 minutes, and then we start with our Q&A. So let's look into two diagrammation. What do I do when the organization is changing, and what do I do when and how we take care of project to organization and organization to project. So first we are looking at organization to project. Now my whole idea is project manager role. Yeah, project manager task, because that's what PMP exam expects, how the project manager handles these things. So task talks about I need to be able to adapt to the organization level changes. What I am saying is, as a project manager, you should be able to recognize the change first and respond to it. Simple. I see things have changed. They are not as same as we started with, and probably I need to do something if they are impacting my project outcomes. So I must recognize the change. Now, there could be various tasks you do, various activities you do to recognize the change. I'm listing some of them here. Probably you do continuous environment assessment. You keep looking at how things are working. Yeah, what is working, what is not working, how our strength weaknesses are changing, how the technological environment is changing, how the political environment is changing, how our leadership attitude is changing, how the policies in the organization is changing. I keep looking at my environment scan. So periodically on various milestone reviews, or in the case of agile way of working, every iteration, I need to assess the relevant environment which has an impact on my project deliverables. So that's a one way to discover if something is changing, and then I recognize it. I continuously engage with stakeholder. I keep talking to them and ask them that, okay, is there anything needs to be changed? I keep taking feedback from them. I keep listening to their idea as a project manager, and I understand if there is something cooking up or something is changing, our earlier assumptions are not valid anymore, and we need to probably adapt in our project. So I do a stakeholder engagement, which helps me in recognizing the change. I keep looking at issues and risks. Yeah, if I see a pattern of issues coming in, if I see a pattern of risk coming in, I understand from where these things are coming in. We were not expecting all these issues or these kind of risk. Looks like something has changed than we thought before. Some of our assumptions are not holding true. That also helps me in recognizing the change. I may conduct milestone reviews, ask feedback in the milestone reviews to the stakeholder, demonstrate what we have done till now, and that also help us in identifying if something has changed. Governance reviews, feedbacks on a various points are all places where I can sense some of the changes. Now, these terms are more linked to predictive way of working. They might be relevant for hybrid way of working as well, but in the adaptive way of working, we may need to focus on those terminologies. We can say iteration reviews, or iteration reviews is something which we are iterating on a frequent basis. We need to know what is working and what is not working. We detect, yeah, if something has to be changed. We may release our versions incrementally. That's what we are expected to do in the adaptive way of working. Maybe we may do our minimum viable increment, or we may have a minimum business increment. All those things, words we can go into detail, but frequent releases, they also help us in validating our assumptions. They help us in getting the real customer feedback, and we realize that if something is changing in our customer segment, if something is changing in our assumption, we come to know in advance. And that can be done in the form of a backlog refinement as well. We may conduct a backlog refinement meeting in the adaptive way of working. So this section is adaptive oriented, you can say, and this section is predictive oriented, and hybrid could be a mix of both. That's what we keep learning when we are learning our PMP content. We need to see everything from the eye of predictive, adaptive, and hybrid. So this is possibly the way we can also recognize the changes. Now, how do we respond to it? First, you make the change visible. We need to make sure the facts are visible. Yeah. We need to make change recognized, change analyzed, impact of the change, the magnitude of the change should be very, very visible to our relevant stakeholder. That's what I do. After making it visible, I probably update my project management plan directly. If it doesn't impact us too much, maybe it is under my thresholds, which is not raising a change request, I may update my project management plan, take care of my contingencies. Through my contingency, I respond to these changes. In some cases, when the changes are very high, as per my change management plan, whatever the threshold is identified there, I may initiate a change control process. Again, I may do a detailed impact analysis, present the idea, show the impact of this particular change which is happening in our deliverable as well as our. So we should show what is the impact of changing by way of cost. At the same time, we also need to show what is the impact of changing as a part of benefit. And we also need to show what is the cost of not changing as a part of opportunity loss. So I may do a different kind of analysis to show the benefits as well as cost attached with that particular change in a predictive way of working. In the adaptive way of working, this all may get done in the backlog refinement. I can say that continuously when we are doing backlog refinement based on iteration reviews, feedback on all our discussions and MVPs and MPIs, we may involve critical stakeholders all the time. Maybe a product owner plays a more critical role there, but we need to ensure that changes are made visible and our stakeholders, respective people as a part of a backlog refinement, they do a due diligence and respond accordingly, which means they prioritize the product backlog and they identify what they have to do in the upcoming iterations. So that's something is an idea which is associated with my organization change impacting my project. Now I'm going reverse. How a project change might impact the organization. So as we have learned, projects drive change. I need to ensure that this thing is moved many times. There has been like, I am into project management for a while, and during my initial era, time of project management, we used to have enterprise resource planning projects more like 2000, 2001, and 2. And there used to be a lot of studies which talks about that most of the enterprise level software developments are failing, because of poor change management. We buy the product, but we don't educate people well. We don't have a buy-in from the peoples, and people keep using their manual processes, and after some time they stop using the whole product, and we may say that it's a failed implementation because we could not configure it well. So good amount of projects were failing because of poor change management rather than just not having the right deliverables. Now, failing means they are failing to achieve the desired outcome. Maybe you have a deliverable in hand, but nobody wants to use it. So we need to ensure, because now our focus, especially from last 2 years or 3 years when the new PMI new content is there, our focus is generating outcome, just not producing the output. So we need to ensure that as a project, we have a mechanism to enable organization to change. Now, what should we do? This is my interpretation: evaluate and enable. So we need to evaluate the impact of our project on people, in order to achieve the desired outcome, on the processes, on the systems, or various other elements of our organizational environment, what you call it, organizational culture. We need to evaluate that. And based on that evaluation, we need to come up with the approach and strategy which enables the organization to adapt to the new deliverable. So again, I am generically posting some of the ideas which will be very useful for PMP exam. These are the type of tasks you will do when you are enabling the organization for the change. Now, what I can probably do as a project manager, you may focus on things like rollout planning. First, you need to do a detailed rollout planning so that you know which group will go first, how we will implement it, the overall understanding of the change. Now, when you are enabling the change, you may not be a driver. As a project manager, you may not be a driver. So say you have a robot ready, you want to install that robot in the plant, but you can't tell the things there. The plant has its own ecosystem, they have their own supervisor, they may have their own head, and you need to work with them. And you may have a different group as a group created just to roll out this thing. So I need to participate in a rollout planning. I may do my part of planning, and I need to integrate that planning is working well with a proposed shutdown, the market production, and other things, so that organization can do the rollout in the integrated manner. So I enable the rollout planning rather than do it myself alone, because other people are important. I may enable the people by way of training, mentoring, and coaching. It's all like that they know. Training is all about educating them on the new system. Mentoring and coaching is more about creating a skill so that they can use the new system. So that could be another thing I do. I may work with various stakeholders so that they understand what they are doing and what should we do in order to promote the outcome by way of enabling change. I may set up a support desk. You may call it a hypercare desk or something, which where people and the users can come and talk about their problems. We may have a system where they can raise a ticket, their issues get clarified, their particular problems get solved so that they start using the system. We may create a knowledge base, where people can read about various manuals. We may create a lot of video content, various promotional things so that people can get this information at a faster speed. And we may have a knowledge transfer process as well by way of putting the things on a place so that others can consume it. So those kind of activity, I as a project manager may do it myself, may be a part of the bigger team where me and my project team is supporting, setting up a help desk and providing training and mentoring. There could be other people in the rest of the organization also involved. So this is my role when I am enabling the change. So it's a bi-directional thing which you need to focus on. Here we quickly read the task associated with it. So I'm not going to a separate slide this time. So it's a business domain task 4, and we are finishing the task 4 now. So it talks about assess organization culture. It's more about that you should know your enterprise environmental factor. You should know your leadership style. You should know how things gets done here, how people behave, how people think. So you need to have a sense of it. And then you need to keep the impact or a change in the organizational cultural element, how they are possibly impacting your project. So evaluate impact of organizational change to the project and determine the required action. We look into it with the help of various tasks. And then we talk about evaluate impact of the project to the organization to determine the required tasks. So that's what I was saying, that we need to assess evaluate where we are, and then we need to enable people so that we can respond to those changes. Yeah. So this is all about your topic on supporting organizational change, the domain business task 4. Any specific questions which can probably help you in dealing with this topic before we go to your open questions and answers? Okay, so in the meantime, if it is taking, I have one more question to handle, which came from our YouTube comment. I'm just taking a pause and seeing if there is a question from a live audience. We take care of that first. Else, I take care of the question which I have from our comment people. The process is simple. You can put your query on the LinkedIn or in the YouTube chat. Okay, so looks like I go ahead with my second query. Okay, so the query was related to a Monte Carlo simulation. So this is the word many times you see in various content, and you may wonder what does this thing mean, and how as a project manager I should do it. So first thing is, you don't have to do a simulation called Monte Carlos in your PMP exam. Yeah, it is just that it's a one of the technique to do a probabilistic estimate of things. You might use it as a quantitative risk assessment, you might use it as a simulation tool. So here I am giving a very simple example just to have a little understanding that what possibly a Monte Carlo simulation can do, just for an understanding purpose. And for a PMP exam, I just need to understand it's a simulation tool. That much is more than enough. So say you are doing your estimates of various tasks. Yeah. Some of you might have studied about 3-point estimations. So you may have a 4 tasks and you want to do a 3-point estimations. So for a task 1, you may say that optimistically I will take 3 days. Most likely I will take 4 days. Pessimistically I will take 5 days. Yeah. Another task you may say I will take 4 days, I may take 6 days, and I may take 10 days. So it's a huge range in this particular case. This task you are saying 5, 5, and 5. I think I know exactly it will take 5 days probably. And then I may have an optimistic number of 3 days again. I may have a most likely number of 5 days again, and pessimistic number of 10 days again. Now, looking at it, we can do a per distribution and all, we can put a 1 number. But in general, what I see here, that earliest, if everything goes optimistically, yeah, so this project can finish in 3 plus 3, 6, 6 plus 4, 10, and 5, 15. In 15 days, I can say that this 4 tasks can finish earliest in 15 days. Now, if I say most pessimistic case, I can say, okay, 10, 20, it can take 30 days. So if I say like this, that, okay, this project will take 15 to 30 days. Okay, get it. Now, if someone asks me, what is the probability of this project finishing in 20 days? What is the probability of this project finishing in 25 days? How do I calculate that? Now, in reality, there could be a various random combination. You may have one situation where this task may take 4 days. This task may also take 4 days. This task may take 5 days. This task may take 3 days. That's a one situation where you can say, okay, in this particular case, this is finishing in say 4 plus 4, 8, 8 plus 8, 16 days. So you can have various such combinations. Yeah, some thousands of such combinations. And the Monte Carlo simulation, one of the possible way of doing it, they can create randomized sample generation against these limits by using some probability distribution, which you may feed into the tool. And they can plot things like that, okay, we may have a days, maybe we are saying that probability of finishing this project in 15 days is starting from here, probability of finishing this project in say 30 days is here, and it may show that this particular thing, as we are going up, we probably may start from now. I should have started a little far, so I can say the probability of finishing in 10 days, and probably a 15 days, and then maybe a 20 days, 25 days, and finally 30 days. So I may have a situation which starts like this, it may goes like this, and it may finally goes like this, and we can say, okay, maybe a reverse also, which shows that, okay, by this many time, we are reaching to a 0.9. Yeah? So, and here it is like, say 0.0, maybe starting with, maybe somewhere it is a 0.5, and there is something else. And if I want to plot a line and says, okay, I want to identify how much time it will take in 20 days, I can plot a line and I can identify that, okay, what is the probability of this thing finishing in this much time? So little complicated. It requires systematic tools. You may put line and time in a XY axis in a reverse way. But the idea here is it helps you in projecting. Yeah. And that's what we do when we are doing quantitative risk assessment, or we are doing some kind of estimation of cost and time. So one of the examples, there could be various types of Monte Carlo simulation. It's just not a one technique. It's a combination of data based algorithms which can create randomized situations, which helps you in estimating some numbers with the basis on the basis of probabilities. Yeah? So that's your high level understanding for PMP exam. You don't have to go beyond this, and that's your Monte Carlo simulation. So now we have a question. So that in the slide, when we were talking about the environment, can we do a Pastel analysis for doing the environments? Definitely you can do it. You can do Pastel analysis, you can do TCOP analysis, you can do SWOT, anything. Yeah. So I just want to keep it at a high level, but that could be another tool. Yeah. So by some tools, by some kind of brainstorming, by some kind of analysis, we identify what is happening in the environment, and that environments can help us in knowing what we should do next. Yeah. So that's the one of the possible tool. Yeah. Great. So we covered three things by now. We spoke about the task 4 of business domain. We looked at the Monte Carlo simulation. I got a little comment in the YouTube, so I wanted to little bit explain that. And we also looked at our the question on Pastel analysis. If there is anything else you want me to look into, please share your query here. You can just type. I wait for a while, and let's see if we see some queries. Okay, so looks like we are settling down. Let's see if that's the case. Now, the debate of our previous ITTO memorization, not memorization, I see is still continued, and I see many people keep recommending that. But yeah, we can probably. So as a PM, can I use the Monte Carlo simulation technique when the senior management asks a PM for how many days does it take to complete a specific task? You can, but it will be two small uses of Monte Carlo simulation. So one of the possible situation is for the same task, you may take an estimate from 3-4 people, and then you may put some distribution under it, and you generate some random numbers under that thing. And based on that, you may project that what is the likelihood of this task getting done in a 5 days, what is the likelihood of this task getting in a 10 days. That's the one possibility. Another possibility is that if you have a historical data, maybe the similar task has been done by different projects in a different timelines, you may pick up that historical data and you tell that, what is the possible distribution of it. And then the Monte Carlo simulation generates various patterns. It can't tell you how much time it will take exactly, but it will tell you based on 5 sample information, how likely, like 50% chances this will get done in 5 days, 70% chances it will get done in 10 days, and 90% chances it will get done in 15 days. So that can come out of Monte Carlo simulation, but it's still a probabilistic distribution. It is not like someone can tell us how much time it will take. You may be lucky, you may take the minimum time in a reality, and you may take the maximum time in some cases. But when you have many such activities and you apply such kind of judgment, it makes us in taking calculated risk. We can say, okay, it's a 70% chance I can do it in this particular time. I probably want to go for it. 50% chance, if this can be done in this much time, the data is saying so, okay, I probably want to be a little conscious about it. So that's the whole thing. Yeah. So say like there is a lottery, yeah, and you have a $100 ticket for a lottery and you can earn 1 million. Yeah. So the probability of earning that 1 million could be 0.00001%, but one person will earn that 1 million. For him, that was the case. Yeah, if I talk about expected monetary value, it will be very less. If I multiply 100 with the probability, it will come maybe less than $10. Yeah, so that has to happen. Then only they can give a 1 million to someone. It will say, the expected monetary value is just $10. Now, even with the expected monetary value of $10, somebody may want to go ahead with it. Somebody will say, no, my 100 is too expensive for such a ratio of winning the ticket and putting the money. I probably don't want to go it. I will only go if I have a expected monetary value of something there. Yeah. Now, Monte Carlo technique is like a sample. There could be various versions of it. Yeah, that's what we do. For a PMP exam, we use 2 terms, similar to Monte Carlo and all. So there are 2 terms which are used for doing quantitative forecast. One is a simulation and another is a Monte Carlo simulation. It is also a simulation, but it's a special type of simulation. The generic simulation is more about what if analysis. You identify various variables, various sensitive variables, and you try to play with them and create various possible scenarios. So say you may planning a project, you are estimating cost. You may estimate the cost based on exchange rate 1, exchange rate 1.1, exchange rate 1.25. Yeah, and you simulate these 3 versions so that people can see what will be the impact on us if the exchange rate becomes 1.25, something like that. So there are simulation, we use that word. The another word which you will see in your PMP exam is a sensitivity analysis, which is also done with the help of simulation. We try to identify in our whole project what are the most sensitive variables. If something like this is happening, that it will impact us a lot. Say maybe some of the material cost. If you are doing a lot of import-export, the exchange rate will be a very sensitive number for you. Delays in some of the weather patterns, you might be very sensitive to that. So you may do a sensitivity analysis also first to identify that variable based on various simulations, and then create some various alternative or various possible say options for it. So those things are usually used. I have used Monte Carlo simulation only once, but I use simulation and sensitivity analysis significantly. Personally, we were doing various projects related to big manufacturing company, urea manufacturing company. So those people used to do a lot of such stuffs for forecasting their market demands and their profitability, because they were pretty much sensitive to the weather patterns. They were pretty much sensitive to the import-export things, because this particular organization was too much dependent on various imported material as well. So they used to do all these things, and I used to create a software for them so that they can do it. Yeah, so that's kind of stuff, and we do it for our projects as well in some cases. Yeah. But for PMP exam, you just need to know the names. Please don't think of studying these things, else it will delay your PMP exam. You understand that, yeah, whenever I need to do little data-oriented approach, I probably need to do these calculations so that I am more informed about the consequences of few things. Okay. Great. So I think we start moving. And if anyone has a specific query, please post it here. And else we have a session. We have a gap of the next week because next week we are doing generic session, which will start at 1 hour later than this time. Yeah, so it will start in India. It was a 6 p.m. So it will start at 7 p.m. And it's a usual open hour which we have been doing for last 1.5 years. So where we will talk about various open-ended queries, maybe on topics like certification, scaled agile, Scrum, Kanban, all those kind of stuff. We will explore that. But here we are more focused on PMP. So just wanted to take. So according to you, what are the difference between work breakdown structure, cost breakdown structure, organization breakdown structure, product breakdown structure? Yeah. So I say that it all depends upon where we are using them. The organization breakdown structure is more about like how do you divide your whole organization. So one thing is focus on a word breakdown structure. BS. Yeah, that's it. So whatever you want to divide from big to small, so that you have a better understanding and better visibility. That's the breakdown structures. Now you can have a risk breakdown structures, you can have a quality breakdown structures, you can have any compliance breakdown structure, you can have product breakdown structure, anything. Yeah. So you have a big thing, you want to divide into smaller thing. Now work breakdown structure is basically you have a big work, you want to divide into a smaller work. That's it. That's the work breakdown structure. Cost breakdown structure, you have a big cost, you want to break down into a smaller cost. That's the cost breakdown structure. Say somebody tells, I will need 1 million for this. Okay, say, can you give me a breakdown of it? You give a cost breakdown. You may categorize it. You can say, okay, the 1 million, this one will go into development, this one will go into travel, this much will go to something else. So we divide the whole cost into different components. That's our cost breakdown structure. Now, in order to understand the organization, usually it's a kind of a hierarchical charts of departments. You can say, okay, we have organization. It has various components and systems in it, departments in it, how this whole organization is divided in order to ensure collaboration and producing the desired outcome. Now, similarly, you may have a product breakdown structure. You may have a big product. There could be various elements in the product. You may break it down. You may say that I have a payment area, I have a customer interface, I have something else. And then you break it down in order to have a better understanding. That could be your product breakdown structure. For a PMP exam, you see frequently the word work breakdown structure, which is primarily applicable for predictive way of working. In the adaptive way of working, we don't use work breakdown structure. Rather, we continuously keep refining the product backlog. Technically speaking, we may do some kind of work breakdown structure kind of thing during our iteration planning or sprint planning. We have a requirement and we divide directly into the task. But since we are only doing it for 2 weeks duration, it doesn't require to be documented. We can just directly jump from requirement to the task. We may not get into creating something intermediate out of it. But in case of predictive way of working, since we want to visualize the whole work and we want to have a mechanism of delivering that whole work in the incremental manner, because it's a big thing, I can't give the whole requirement to someone and says, do your part of the work. They will get confused. Maybe some part of the work will go to the vendor. So I need to identify sections so that it makes things manageable for me as a project manager. It makes the work easily divisible. It can also help me ensuring accountability at various levels. It also helps me in doing cost breakdown structure if it is needed, because we can understand where are the various cost elements. And that's how I use work breakdown structures. Yeah. So that's what we do. Now, another structure which you sometimes end up seeing is a risk breakdown structure. It's just to remind you about the risk. You can say you have a root risk and then risk as a thing, and then you have various risk categories. Like you have technical category, people category, process categories, compliance, and then under it you may have subcategories, basically to remind you about thinking about various risks in this particular categorization format here. So your breakdown structures are basically for the convenience. Whenever you see a word, you can just guess it that it is something getting divided into smaller pieces. Yeah. So my metaphor is that you want to have a big watermelon. You can't have it directly. You need to cut it and divide it into smaller pieces. That is your WBS. So you have a whole project. You can't have it. So you need to divide in two pieces. Maybe you want to only have a half. So first you only divide half. You put the remaining half in a fridge. You can say, I will divide it later. And this half you may cut it and have it. Yeah. So that is also possible in case of your project work breakdown structure. You may do a progressive elaboration in a predictive life cycle. You may not cut everything on the day one because you will get a more visibility and you will think, why to cut the rest of the half because I'm not planning to eat it right now. So there is a possibility some section of your WBS will get elaborated at a later stage. Yeah. So that's how we visualize it. Okay, so here we go. I wait for a few more minutes, see if we have more questions. Noor, you are preparing too well. I think you will get a lot of benefit other than PMP. Yeah, if you keep this focus, that's great. Okay, so I think we make a move for today's session. I just wanted to remind again, okay, we have a question coming in. Okay, what is the meaning of, let me share it. What is the meaning of calculated risk while you mentioned in a while ago? How does it occur? How to solve it? It is something we need to think and mention in a project charter under risk assumptions and all. So calculated risk is that I don't want to jump and get hurt. Yeah, but I may want to take a little small height jump, and because I think I can handle it. Or if I see that I'm jumping on a easy surface, I can take a risk of a jump and I can say this is something I can handle it. That's a calculated risk. Now, in our project management terminology, it is a calculation of impact and probability. You can say we calculate the exposure of a risk. We may do it subjectively, and sometimes we may go into more detail where we calculate the dollar value of it with the help of expected monetary value. So I see a risk and reward, and when I see that I can take this risk for this reward, I'm taking a calculated risk. That's the thing. Now, how it is there as a project manager, first I need to understand my stakeholders' attitude towards the risk. Yeah, that I start with understanding my organization environment and having an agreement on what is our approach, how much risk we can take. And this particular thing, if I talk about predictive life cycle, I may document in a risk management plan. So it's a part of my risk strategy, it's a part of my risk approach. I can say, okay, guys, you can take these kind of risks, but if you are going beyond this, you must consult us. Don't go into the area which can put a brand name of the organization at risk. So you may have some red lines which you should not cross. You may have some area where you can play. Now, different organizations may have a different level of, we call it risk appetite. There is a startup company, they may want to take a lot of calculated risk because they are there to make something or break. Yeah. The organization which is in the stable business, they have a lot of liabilities, they are very visible to the government and all. They want to play safe because if something goes wrong, they may have a lot of consequences and they need to worry about their employees and their stakeholders. They can't just jump somewhere where they end up into a mess. Yeah. So that much as a project manager, I understand their attitude towards the risk, their appetite, how much they can digest the risk, and based on that, I frame my risk management plan. That will drive my overall risk management process. So, for example, if my organization wants to take lots of risk, I may not plan mitigations for various risks. I may accept many risks because, as per my risk management plan, we may have identified a risk threshold, and we can say, okay, till this particular level, we can do it good. Yeah. So the exposure which I comes multiplied by probability and impact, till a certain exposure, I keep accepting the risk. I say, we'll see. A lot of things may go wrong. We will see as we go along. We are taking lots of risk. If the organization is very conservative, they want to play safe, then I may need to mitigate many risks. Yeah, we can say, okay, guys, this is something we need to take care of it, take care of it, take care of it, take care of it, and this is how we remove it. Yeah. So that's the thing. Okay, interesting question. If PM wants to make an organization change, who need to provide approval, change advisory board and all. So say your change control board is more to deal with change which are happening inside the project. Yeah. So the environment impacting the project deliverables and impact getting analyzed, and we see in the integrated fashion, and the stakeholder or a change control board takes a call, should we do it or not. That's the role of your change advisory group or change control group or whatever word you take. Yeah. Now, when you have the reverse change happening, when the organization is expected to change because of the deliverable coming from the project. For example, you may want to reorganize the plant reporting system. Right now, the plant has a particular hierarchy, and now you are coming with a robot, and you are seeing that this particular hierarchy is a counterproductive for our robot adaptation. Or you may want to propose some kind of a different performance monitoring matrices, because you see the current performance matrices, current overtime calculation is counterproductive for automation which you are driving. People just want to do overtime, so they will not take an automation seriously. So you see these challenges. Now, you may have a change group there. It may be called advisory group. It may be called transformation group. Usually it is called transformation group, or maybe sometimes it is called change group also. But that group is more associated with org level change. So there I take a proposal. It is not about the deliverable. I take a proposal. I give my assessment of it. I show how this particular intervention in the organization culture, in the organization structure, in the organization system can help us in achieving the outcome of saving cost with the help of automation. I make my case and I present my case to those stakeholders. They may decide to do it. And if they decide to do it, they are the one who are implementing it. I am not the one who implements it. Yeah? So that's how we can understand the second nature of the change, which is very critical in order to achieve the outcome. Because if we don't think about it, if we stick to our deliverable boundaries, we may produce a deliverable, but it may not produce the desired outcome. And that's what we are learning in our task 4 of a business domain, that we need to see how our project can drive outcomes. And in order to drive the outcomes, I also need to facilitate that my project drives change in the organization. Yeah. Okay, so that's one. I know it's a little delay before we see something on the chat. So you can say related to change, when do we need to use ADCAR technique? Now in our PMP official content, they do mention the idea of ADCAR. All the things which we are talking about enabling change in the organization, we can use assistance from various models. And one of the possible model is ADCAR, as probably like recommended by PMI content, yeah, not the exam content outline. You may not see a question directly associated to ADCAR in your PMP exam, but that's the thing which we need to focus on. Now, ADCAR, for many of you, it is a new thing. It's a Prosky's model of driving change. It's a very old idea and still relevant. And it talks about that we need to create awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement for making the change stick in the context of generating outcome. Yeah, so that's where the PM can take the role of ADCAR, primarily to drive the change inside the organization. As I said, you may not be it may not be the driver of it. You will be supporting it. Yeah, that's the thing. So there could be a different group other than the project. Sometimes the whole change part, organization change part, is done by a group. Sometimes your project is about that only. that you don't produce deliverables. The deliverables are already there. You are there to do a change in the organization. Many times those kind of projects are also called transformation projects, implementation projects. So you might be doing implementation and transformation project where your primary job is educating, training, mentoring, setting up the help desk, influencing people to try out something so that the outcome can be achieved. Okay, so the next session is just after one Friday. The coming Friday, we have an open session, which is not about PMP. It could be anything. We can talk about PMP topics also in case we have something. But our formal PMP episode 5 will happen in the first Friday of July. Because the way I am designing it, the last Friday of the month, we are keeping it for generic Q&A, whereas rest of the Fridays we are keeping it for PMP topics. And my intent is I present a topic in little detail than what I do in the class, because we have more freedom here, and I try to stick to exam content outline as much as possible rather than going here and there or any other topic. So we are already done with the whole domain of business. The 4 tasks are done. We'll pick up something from probably a process domain or people domain. We have 14 tasks in people domain, 17 in process. So I think we'll cover them as we go along. Yeah, thanks for participating, Noor. I think it was good talking to you in a way, chatting and talking to you. Okay, so thank you and see you in our 5th session soon.